What if the man who defeated kings, toppled empires, and marched across the known world did not die a natural death? What if Alexander the Great, the unstoppable conqueror, was silenced by betrayal? The year is 323 BCE. The city is Babylon, the beating heart of Mesopotamia. Inside the palace once built by Nebuchadnezzar II, a great feast is underway. The halls glow with torchlight. The air is heavy with wine, roasted meat, and the sound of music. Soldiers laugh, generals whisper, women dance. And in the center of it all sits Alexander, the man who calls himself the son of Zeus. He is only 32 years old, yet he has done the impossible. He has crushed the mighty Persian Empire. He has marched through deserts where armies starved, crossed rivers that swallowed men whole, and led battles where the ground was soaked in blood. From Greece to Egypt, from the highlands of Persia to the edges of India, his banner flies. No one has stopped him. No one has beaten him. But Alexander is not finished. He dreams bigger. Arabia is next. Then Rome. Maybe even the unknown lands beyond the horizon. His generals grow nervous. His men are exhausted. Yet Alexander's ambition is endless. He raises his cup. The crowd cheers. His eyes burn with the same fire that carried him through every war. And then it begins. At first, it is nothing more than a fever. A slight pain in the head. A chill across his skin. He waves it off. He has endured worse. But the next day, the fever grows stronger. His chest tightens. His body aches. He pushes through it, planning, plotting, refusing to rest. By the third day, the invincible king cannot walk. His men carry him to his chamber. Sweat pours from his body. His breathing grows heavy. He grips his sword, refusing to let it fall from his side. But even Alexander cannot fight this unseen enemy. For 12 days, his body weakens. His voice fades. His limbs grow still. The man who faced storms, deserts, and endless wars now lies trapped in silence, staring at the ceiling of a palace far from home. His soldiers gather outside his chamber, desperate for a glimpse. His generals argue in whispers, casting nervous glances at one another. The question spreads through the palace like wildfire. What is happening to him? Some say it is disease. The marshes around Babylon are thick with mosquitoes. Could it be malaria? Others whisper it is typhoid fever, born from tainted water. Alexander has survived wounds, infections, and exhaustion before. But this feels different. It feels deliberate. And so the whispers grow darker. Poison. Ancient historians like Plutarch and Diodorus Siculus recorded the rumors. Poison slipped into his wine. Poison so subtle it did not kill instantly, but drained his life day by day. If this is true, then who held the cup? Who had the courage to kill a man worshipped as a god? The suspects are everywhere. His generals, men who marched with him for years, knew he was planning to replace them. His old regent in Macedonia, Antipater, feared being stripped of power. Antipater's sons, Cassander and Iolaus, carried bitter hatred for Alexander. Even Roxana, his wife, may have worried about losing her place as Alexander looked toward Persian queens for alliances. Enemies within, friends with knives hidden behind their smiles. A god among men, surrounded by those who may want him gone. Yet in his final days, Alexander still shows his will. Soldiers file past him as he lies on his bed, unable to speak. He looks each man in the eye, lifting his hand, nodding, proving that though his body is broken, his spirit is unshaken. They weep at his side. The greatest general they have ever known is slipping away, and they are powerless. Then, as the end draws near, comes the moment that will change history forever. The generals lean close, asking, "Who will inherit this empire? Who will rule after you?" Alexander struggles to breathe. His lips part, and with a faint whisper, he speaks the words that ignite chaos to the strongest. 3 words. 3 words that will divide his empire, plunge his generals into war, and stain the world with decades of blood. 3 words that may be his final message, or perhaps his final curse. Outside his chamber, Babylon waits. The streets are silent, holding their breath. The greatest conqueror of all time, a man who believed himself immortal, lies between life and death. But was this truly fate, or was it betrayal? The answer lies not in his empire, but in the shadows of the men who stood beside him that night. And their secrets have been buried for centuries. The palace of Babylon falls into silence. Soldiers wait outside the chamber, pressing their ears against the walls, desperate for news. The greatest king in history is dying, and no one knows why. Inside, the air is heavy with the smell of sweat and sickness. Alexander's chest rises and falls in uneven breaths. His eyes, once sharp as steel, drift in and out of focus. He tries to speak, but only a rasp escapes. The conqueror of worlds, a man who faced storms and endless battles, is now trapped inside his own body. His generals gather in the hall outside. Their voices are low but fierce, like wolves circling a wounded lion. Ptolemy, loyal but ambitious. Seleucus, watchful and calculating. Perdiccas, the one closest to Alexander, already dreaming of power. They whisper about succession. They argue about the future. But no one dares to open the chamber door and tell the soldiers the truth. And then a strange detail begins to spread. Alexander's body does not decay. Days pass, yet his skin remains untouched by rot. No stench, no darkening. He looks as if he is merely asleep. His followers fall to their knees, believing this is proof of his divinity. To them, Alexander is not dying. He is becoming a god. But to modern eyes, the mystery deepens. Some scholars whisper of Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare disease that paralyzes the body while leaving the mind awake. If true, then Alexander may not have been dead when his men declared him gone. He may have been conscious, hearing everything, trapped in silence while his generals plotted over his empire. The thought is chilling. Imagine Alexander, unable to move or speak, listening as his commanders debated who would take his throne. Listening as the empire he forged with blood and fire began to crumble in the next room. Yet another rumor grows louder, the poison theory. Ancient writers like Justin accused Antipater's sons. They claimed the king was given a deadly mixture brought from the river Styx, the mythical river of the underworld. Its waters, they said, were so toxic they corroded metal. A single drop, mixed into wine, could kill without leaving a trace. And who served Alexander's wine the night he fell ill? Iolaus, son of Antipater. To many, the answer was clear. The motive was strong. Antipater had ruled Macedonia in Alexander's absence. But now the king planned to remove him. Fear gripped the old regent. His sons knew their future was tied to their father's survival. And years later, Antipater's son Cassander would prove his ruthlessness, murdering Alexander's widow Roxana and his young son, erasing the bloodline of the conqueror himself. But there were other signs. Babylonian scribes recorded strange omens in the sky. Eclipses, fire, storms. The people whispered that the gods were angry. Had Alexander gone too far by claiming he was divine? Was this not poison or illness, but punishment from the heavens? The room where he lay was filled with tension. Perdiccas stood closest to him, clutching Alexander's royal ring, waiting for the final breath. Some claimed Alexander lifted his hand and passed the ring to Perdiccas before the end, a sign of trust. Others say he did no such thing, and that Perdiccas simply took it. Outside, the army demanded answers. They loved Alexander, but they feared what came next. The generals appeared before them, announcing that the king had spoken his last words. To the strongest, they said, "But was this true? Or had they twisted his silence into a prophecy that served their own ambitions?" Within hours of his death, Babylon descended into chaos. Soldiers wept in the streets. Markets closed. Foreign envoys rushed to secure their safety. The world's greatest empire had been built on one man's vision, and now that man was gone. But the greatest mystery was not just how Alexander died. It was what happened next. His generals, the men who had shared his victories, began to tear each other apart. His half-brother Aridaeus, weak of mind, was declared king. His unborn son by Roxana was named heir. But both were pawns, easily controlled, easily discarded. The empire was divided. Old alliances collapsed. Friends became enemies. And in the shadows of Babylon, whispers continued. Alexander had not died of fever. He had not died of fate. He had been murdered. If that was true, then his death was not just the end of one man. It was the beginning of 40 years of blood, betrayal, and war. The wars of the Diadochi, where brother turned on brother, and Alexander's dream of a united world shattered into pieces. But there is one more twist in this story. A secret that would outlive the wars. A mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The fate of Alexander's body. His body was never meant to stay in Babylon. According to Macedonian tradition, he should have been carried home, laid to rest in Aegae, the land of his fathers. Yet the body of Alexander the Great would never return to Macedonia. A magnificent funeral cart was built, an enormous, golden chariot said to gleam like the sun itself. Its roof was carved with stars, its sides adorned with lions, bulls, and sacred figures. Curtains of purple silk surrounded the coffin. Statues of gods stood guard. It was not a funeral cart. It was a moving temple, a rolling monument to the man who had called himself divine. But before it reached Macedonia, the procession was intercepted. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted generals, made his move. He seized the body and carried it to Egypt. Why? Because he knew the truth. Whoever controlled Alexander's body controlled his legacy. To the people, the body of the conqueror was more powerful than any crown. And so, Alexander's corpse became a weapon in the wars that followed. In Memphis, and later in Alexandria, Ptolemy built a tomb fit for a god. He placed the body in a golden sarcophagus, displayed before the world. Pilgrims came from across the Mediterranean to look upon the man who had changed history. For centuries, the tomb stood as the greatest treasure of Alexandria, and rulers could not resist it. Julius Caesar himself is said to have visited the tomb, bowing before the lifeless king who once dreamed of Rome. Years later, Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, touched Alexander's face. It is said he broke the nose of the corpse by accident, a reminder that even gods can be scarred. But then, the tomb disappeared. By the 3rd or 4th century CE, the records grow silent. The body of Alexander vanishes from history. Some say it was destroyed by fire, others by earthquake. Some whisper it was hidden, buried deep to protect it from invaders. Others claim it still lies beneath modern Alexandria, waiting to be found. And with its disappearance, so too vanished the final clue to the greatest mystery of all. How did Alexander die? If his body were ever found, science could give us answers. Bones, flesh, and burial wrappings might reveal disease. Malaria, typhoid, or perhaps a rare disorder like Guillain-Barré syndrome. Or they might reveal something far darker. The traces of a poison unknown to the ancient world. Was it the slow burn of illness? The bitter hand of betrayal? Or the wrath of the gods themselves, striking down a man who dared to call himself their equal? The story of Alexander's death is not just about how he died. It is about what his death unleashed. His empire, once stretching from the shores of Greece to the mountains of India, shattered into fragments. His generals, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Antigonus, Cassander, carve it apart like vultures feasting on a fallen lion. For 40 years they fought. Friends became enemies. Families were destroyed. His bloodline was hunted down, extinguished, erased from history. And all of it began with one moment in Babylon, when a young king gasped for breath and whispered 3 words to the strongest. Perhaps he was poisoned. Perhaps he was paralyzed and buried alive. Perhaps the gods themselves struck him down. The truth is lost, sealed in a tomb that may never be found. But one question lingers, haunting the corridors of history. What if Alexander had lived? What if he had marched west into Rome? What if he had conquered Carthage and sailed into lands unknown? Would the world we know today even exist? The answer lies buried with him, beneath the sands of Alexandria, beneath centuries of silence. Until the tomb is found, the death of Alexander the Great will remain history's most enduring secret. References for description and accuracy: Plutarch, Life of Alexander Diodorus Siculus, Library of History Arian, The Anabasis of Alexander Justin, Epitome of the Philippic History of Pompeius Trogus Bosworth, A. B. Conquest and Empire, The Reign of Alexander the Great Worthington, Ian. Alexander the Great, Man and God.